So for most people at this point in the project, the next thing that you naturally want to do is start changing up the materials because these bright oranges and reds are really quite obnoxious. It's not necessarily what I think should be the focus of the project at this point, but that being said, I don't think it's a bad idea just to spend maybe a few minutes sprucing up the outside. Don't go to the inside, don't get extensive with it yet. Our focus at this point really needs to be building the surroundings. But because, like I said, most people are sick of looking at red, let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do just a few things with the materials. Okay, the first thing is open up your library and we'll go to materials. It should be noted that you do have the potential here. It would take too long if I were to do it, but you can click on this little arrow and it will download all of the materials in that library. And then you wouldn't have to wait for materials that you want specifically. It is a little bit overkill because really you don't need all the materials, but then on the other hand, it can kind of speed things up once everything's downloaded. On a virtual machine, when you log out and log back in again, you'll have to download them again. Okay, so to get started, I want to maybe find a siding. Okay, pretty common material for the outside of a building, so I'm going to search for siding. And you'll find that twin-motion sidings are maybe just a little bit underwhelming. You can take this white one and you can turn it into whatever color you want. It's just that the way it was created, it doesn't look like it was ever a real siding or a picture from real siding. And when you stretch it, it can look just a little bit weird. So it's not my favorite, but it's definitely a good place to begin. Okay, so I'm going to take this and we're going to zoom in on one of my walls. And if you don't recall, my walls had a material high and a material low. I'm going to do siding up top, and then down here this would be stone. And what's so great about applying a material in twin motion from a Revit model is that if I pull this onto just a single wall, it's going to actually replace every wall that had that same type of siding on it. And so you can actually make pretty quick work of your materials this way. Now let's zoom in on it. And not only is it not my favorite material, it's terrible for siding at that scale. So the first thing we want to do is fix that. And to do so, I'm going to go down here to the materials palette at the bottom, which is all the materials that are currently in my project. So over here, these are materials I can put into the project. These ones already are. And if I click on this one and then go to properties, then I can scroll through the menus here and find all the settings and just try different things until I like them. I think it's a good idea to turn off the scene menu just because I can see a little bit more of this menu when I do that. And if you want, you can even turn off the library just temporarily here so that we can see more of the project. I guess I can't move that down, but that's okay. So back over here to the properties. The one that you'd probably want to deal with if you're going to change the scale is here in the UV category. So these tabs are all different categories, and then you've got subcategories within them. The UV, I'll scroll down and find scale, and I can just turn that up until I start to like it. Part of my reasoning for not loving this material is that as you scale it up or down, there's a little shadow line here, and the shadow gets scaled too. And that's okay. It's not terrible. It doesn't look that bad right now, but it does sometimes tend to feel like it's getting just a little bit on the big side. And then the second thing you might look at is the color. And you noticed when we were searching that there were at least two other sidings. There's a wooden one and a terrible bright red one. I don't know what that's doing in here. And then there's some metal ones that, probably wouldn't be appropriate for a house like this. Maybe, but I don't think I'm going to use them. And anyways, I'm going to go back in here since I don't really see the color I want. And I'm going to see if I can make any adjustments. And this is one area where I think twin motion shines. If I go back to the main category, there's a tint. And giving this any color will actually come through pretty well. Okay, so if I wanted maybe some kind of a beige, you can click anywhere on the color selector, and then you can change that just by adding more darkness or lightness to the very color that you've selected. And if I pick somewhere out here, you can see that it's going to keep this all the way up to the brightest settings. So if I want to start seeing some darker colors, I just need to pull that down. And it's going to stay within that range anywhere that I select. Okay, so once again, let's see if we can find maybe some kind of a tan or a taupe, some kind of a beige that we like. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. Okay, my screen is so small here that it's hard to tell, and it's kind of hard to tell if you like the color as long as you've got all these oranges all around it. Let me go something a little more extreme just so that you can see that it actually works. And you can see that's turning blue, and again, it does a pretty good job. And if I darken that, then it should come through even stronger. I'm having a hard time with the direct sunlight. I don't think that I'm seeing it too well over here, but if I zoom in, it's really not bad. Okay, I'm going to go back to somewhat of a kind of a creamy taupe color. Okay, and then let's just do this a couple more times. So I want some stone down here on the bottom, and I'm going to search for a stone, and they do have categories within this library. So you could just go look at the stones, or you could search for a stone. Just remember, I've shown this in a previous video, that if you do a search and you're too far inside of one of these menus, then you're going to limit what you can get as a result. So if I search for stone while I'm in the glass category, it's going to make it seem as though there is no stone. So just be careful and aware of that. But I'm going to go back here to stones, find one that I like. We'll just drag that on, and it's got to be downloaded first. Drag that into position, and you're likely going to have the same problem where you may not like the scale. I think I want something with more color anyway, so I might just try something else anyhow. Okay, and then in the same place that we found it before, we'll go scale this up. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, and if you just continue doing this, pretty soon this house is going to be much more appealing than it was before. And shingles are going to be a big one. Trim is going to be a big one. It's going to be pretty easy for me to just go in there and add in some white. You can go all through the material library until you find something white that you like. But I've found that wall coverings has some in here. And the thing about materials in Twinmotion is you don't really know what they look like until you hover over them. And then you can see that they might have a slight texture to them. And sometimes, you know, the texture might be so little that you wouldn't notice it really anyways in a rendering. But these are really good, just like a painted wall. You know, as far as color goes, that's probably the best thing that you can do. And matte means it's really dull, it's not shiny at all. And satin has more shine to it, but not as much as shiny. Okay, so for this, I think I'm just going to go with maybe a satin. And I don't know. Later on, I'll find out, you know, if I want it to be more matte. But we'll just try this. Apply that. And it doesn't look bad. You know, at some point, I'm going to have to go through here and refine all these colors. But it doesn't look great as long as this brown is still in here. So I'm going to keep on going. Next thing would probably be shingles. And once again, I have to go out of the library to find this, or out of the category that I was in. Okay, here's my shingles. We're going to download that. These shingles are pretty good. I have had some students complain of the fact that they might orient the wrong way. And there are ways to fix that, but I'm not going to show that in this video. That's kind of more advanced. Okay, once again, we want to just scale that on up until that looks a little bit better. Good. Whoop, sorry, sometimes I'm not very good at navigating this still. Okay, after you've put something into the project, like I said, it's going to show up down here. So instead of searching for the white again, I can simply grab this one and apply it somewhere else. And if I do this enough times, things are going to start to look a little bit better. I'm not going to take all the time that I need to, because this needs to be some kind of a concrete. It's, you know, some kind of a precast piece. I've got concrete down here. The one that I think I do want to do right now, though, is the glass. Let's definitely stop looking at orange through the windows, right? And the clear glass is really good. If you get something with like a really slight blue hint, That's not bad either. You can really barely even tell the difference, but there is just a little bit of color in that one, so I'm going to go with clear. Okay, and then we'll just apply that, and putting it on one glass window should take care of it throughout most of the project. Okay, it's already starting to look better, and like I said, that's probably as far as I want to go, because there's a lot more that you could know about materials, and maybe there will be more videos on it. But I think for right now, you should just try experimenting with some of these settings to see what they do. And one that I can just give you a little hint on is roughness. It's kind of a strange name if you ask me, but under the details, this is where, between specular and just the intensity of roughness, this is where you can make something shiny or not. So if I select, for example, the material up here on the roof, let's see what its roughness is. It's at 88%, implying that this is not very shiny. So the higher you go on intensity for roughness, it's not shiny, and the lower that you go, the more shiny it is. Let's see, this plastic siding looks a little bit shiny, for example. So let's click on that and see what that one is. That one's down here at 38. So if you don't want it to be shiny and you feel like it's a little too shiny, just dial that up. And then you can also go in here and change the specular just to see what that's going to do. And not really making a difference right now, but anyways, those are some of the basic settings that I think are important. So go have some fun building out all the materials, at least for the outside right now. And when you're all done, you can turn off this menu because it does kind of get in the way. It makes this space really small to work in. And then one last thing that I want to show you, even though this is slightly more advanced, it may come in handy right away. You notice that every time I place a material, like let's do the concrete here. Oh, see, that always gets me. I got to go library and then concrete. I don't want to spend a lot of time here, so let's pick something quick and basic. So if I place this one, for example, I'm going to put it right here, and it just applies that thing everywhere, and maybe you're going, you know what, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to put it right here on that surface. So in order to do that, you're going to choose up here on this top menu to replace or apply a material to an object rather than placing the entire material. And then of course there's also a selection. So let's try that. And that is the concrete, I guess. Let's try that again. Oh, there we go. There it is. And you can see now it's only applying it to that very object instead of applying it everywhere. Sometimes that comes in handy, and most of the time you won't need it. Now go ahead and have fun applying materials.